everybody, and thank you for joining me on my podcast, Love You, Live You. I am Kathleen Heim. Obviously, I'm the host of the Love You, Live You podcast, and I am author of the book titled The Rule of Nines. And today I have a very special guest on the show that I'm super excited to introduce to you. His name is Mark Worster. And welcome, Mark, to the show.
Kathy, thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And as you can see, Mark is known for his high energy and his positive vibe. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about him. I'm going to give you his bio. So he's an entrepreneur, a leader, a fitness fanatic, and a healthcare professional. Mark brings a passion and joy for living in everything he does. And I've known Mark for quite a while, and I'm going to be confirming that. From chairman of the board of a $20 million health services agency to a certified yoga instructor, which I did not know about.
Yeah.
How long have you been a yoga instructor?
I certified in 1999.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Mark has accumulated an impressive array of diverse experiences, as you can tell.
That I have.
He is known for his charismatic, high energy approach to leadership. Mark has led many groups to successful completion of their missions. And I can see why this is his forte, that high energy and that drive that he has is very contagious.
Oh, love it.
Yeah. And Mark's latest endeavor, Nurse Mark, as you can see behind you in that backdrop, is the largest global community of empowered people dedicated to powerful living.
Yes.
Through his community, we are changing the world. In addition, Mark is a leader of the cannabis space, educating people about the benefits of cannabis as a medicine. So Mark, welcome again to the show.
Thanks, Kathy.
You're welcome. So talk to me about, let's just start with your endeavors and, what you're doing now, from your entrepreneurship, your healthcare, all the way into your cannabis venture.
Oh man, there's so much to talk about, Kathy. I started a tech consulting business in 1987, and I ran that for 30 years up until the end of 2017. And I sold that to my partner and exited that business. And I had gone to nursing school a few years prior, nights and weekends while I ran that last company. And I wanted to do something more meaningful to me personally in my life. I wanted to have a little bit more impact directly with people. And, I've always been interested in doing things that has to do with direct contact with people, right? Yoga instruction. I'm a CrossFit coach. I really like community, right? I love people and just absolutely wanted to do something more meaningful. So I chose nursing, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And lo and behold, I got introduced to cannabis. And, I was not an advocate. I was agnostic. My dad was a state trooper when I was growing up, and my mom was raised by Christian Scientists. So no drugs, no medications, no nothing, right? I mean, my mother wouldn't go to the doctors until something was falling off, right? Or she was, like bleeding profusely. So I didn't really care one way or the other. And then, wow, all of a sudden I get introduced to cannabis. And the more I dug into it, the more I did research into the research that has been done, and there's a ton that has been done, I really found something that was very amazing. And it was an opportunity for me to really be in the forefront of something new in the healthcare paradigm. So it resonated with me. And so here I am. But the community aspect of it really goes back to creating a life that you love. And that's what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Your podcast. And that's what you are all about. And so we're very much aligned in that. And, the community, what I'm up to now is not just cannabis, not CBD products. It's really about transformation and transforming your life. So I'm doing, I'm creating an online training program as we speak around transformation. And it really has to do with loving yourself. It all comes down to that.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I've done a lot, and I've had a lot of great success, but what people didn't know, and I didn't tell anybody, or not many people, was that I had depression most of my life and mood disorder. And so despite that, I was able to have great success and have a lot of happy times in my life, but it was recurring, and medication did not help. And I swear to you, I've tried every medication that they can offer. I have tried, to no avail. So I had to come up with different strategies. I had to come up with things that worked for me. And for me, what works is meditation. So mindfulness meditation, they do that a lot with CBT training. But for me, it was meditation, and then exercise is a huge component of that, as well as nutrition. And finally, I needed to get to the root of the story. So I was introduced to a great guy named David Sohn, and he wrote a book called Escaping the Labyrinth. And it was about mind, body, memory, okay? And about this concept that your body stores memories in your cells. And so he had this program that he would use, this specific way of treating that. But what it was, Kathy, is that you get down to the fact that by the time you're 5 years old, we as human beings have decided three things: who I am, who you are, and how the world is. And so in that first 5 years, if you've had any traumatic events, or you've had things that have happened to you where you get sort of this skewed messaging, your decision at that time gets implanted and runs in the background without you even knowing that it's there. So it impacted all of my relationships, because my story was, I'm unlovable, you can't be trusted, and the world is judgmental. So imagine how all my relationships went. And so I had one relationship that ended at the end of 2018. And it was like the final straw, where I had to decide, hey, what the heck is going on? Why are these relationships that mean a lot to me ending? And I had to get to that story. And once I got to that story that's running in the background, I was able to identify it, understand it, and then it loses all its power. And so that's part of the transformation, is figuring out what is the story that you created before you were 5 years old.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. And we are in alignment a lot. That's my
Yeah.
book. I don't know if you've had a chance to pick it up or read it, but the first chapter is identifying your what. And it goes into basically what you're talking about without the timeline of 5 years old. But we're told when we're born, basically, we're stamped with a name, with a gender, with a religion, with a race. We're
Get the
just told who we
stories.
are. And when we go forward from that point of birth forward, we become who we're said we should be, and whatever experiences we have at that young age do impact us tremendously, whether they be trauma, whether they be love. It could go either way. So
Right.
pretty awesome.
And
But
there are a lot of people who get a very good story, right? So by the time they're 5, they may make a decision that they're totally lovable and the world is great, and and everybody else is just there to make them happy. Like, it could be a good story. So
it could
my stuff is for people who may be struggling, who
right.
may be wondering why doesn't anything really seem to work out in the end? Why do I keep having these issues and that come up?
Well, you and I are somewhat, I would say, in the same age range,
Yeah,
and it's making me
I'm
think
younger. Yeah.
about these people, at
Mhm.
our in our age range, so to speak, that are at this point where they were, where you were with relationships, where
Yeah.
I've been with relationships. A lot of people are in the same boat, whether it's relationship,
Right.
that's on the job. And if you think about those first 5 years, and you said something about, yeah, there are people who have an opposite experience of yourself.
Yeah.
However, we think about how parenting has changed from how it was when we were young. And
Hmm.
as much love as you got, children are seen and not heard. There were spankings. There were a
Yeah.
lot of, so I would venture to say the majority of people out there would really benefit from your program. So talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit
Right.
more. Right, exactly. And not by
And a
fault
lot
of
of it
any
has to
parent.
do with our age, right? I mean, when you get to sort of the mid years, you start to take a look and you're saying, okay, um, I'm recognizing that I'm not sure how much time I have left because, you know, I have friends that are not here now, right? My people that I grew up with, there are a lot of I've been blessed. I have a lot of friends, and when you have a lot of friends, you're going to have a portion of them who pass away. And so every time that happens, you take a look and you say, "Wow, I don't know how much time I have left. Okay, now I need to get serious about this. Why do I keep having this occur in my life?" Um, and I just don't understand it. So you start to really think about why these things happen.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Mm,
And a lot of the time, one of the, I would say, one of the things that we don't do is take accountability. We want to point the finger at other people and
it's
say, well,
easy to
that they
do.
weren't nice to me and they lied to me. And we're talking about relationships and they cheated on me. But what about, if you're the common denominator and all those things, what about your makeup, your psyche, like you're saying, from your before
Right,
5 years old? What does that have to do with it? Apparently it has
right.
something to do with it. Now tell me how you, maybe do you walk through steps, or what is it that you do, if you want to share a little
So to have to deal with that, there was a process that I used that included a positive affirmation,
bit.
which I would, and it's a 90-day period of time. So for 90 days, I would write this positive affirmation, which for me, in the first one that I did was, people love me just the way I am. And so I would write that, and then I would write whatever came to my mind. I would just journal it. So every day I'd write that and I journal it. And then I would have a series of things that I would disavow, like from my from doing the work. I found these statements that were pertinent to me, like, for instance, I will never be like him. Like, I had a resentment against my dad because I didn't want to ever be like him. So that was a problem for me, right? Because I love my dad and he is who he is, but I would have this resentment in the background. So to get rid of it, I would disavow. I would say, I disavow, I will never be anything like him, because let's face it, I have his DNA. I am a lot like him. So if I had a resentment against him, who did I really have the resentment against?
Against yourself.
Me.
Wow.
So all these things, you peel away at it, and it gets you to a place where you love yourself. And that's ultimately where we need to get to in order to have solid, positive relationships in our lives. Because if I'm good with me and I'm solid, then nothing you do is going to have an effect on me. I mean, I may be saddened by your behavior. I may get angry for a very short period of time, not long at all. But in the end, I'll just be compassionate and understand that you're human and that's just how you're wired. I don't have to necessarily be in a relationship with you, but at least I don't have to hate you or blame you. That's going back to what you said. And that was a key point, I think, is that, as long as we're blaming other people, we're not going to ever get to the root of the issue.
Absolutely. And also, I like something that you said. It resonated with me. And that was, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but basically it was not being responsible for yourself first.
Hmm.
You said that,
Yeah.
but I'm not responsible for you. You're responsible for you also. So
Right.
you can be mad maybe for a minute, but you let it go. And what's
Yeah.
really hard for people, I mean, for myself personally, is to not take on the emotion of the other person and to realize,
So hard not to do that.
so hard being the
Yeah.
way, everyone's different, but you're
Yep.
sad. Oh, I got to be sad. You're happy. Oh, now I'm happy.
Yeah.
When really I'm happy already. So let me just stay in my little world and you can stay in your little
Yeah.
mad world. But it's very, very, very challenging for people to do that because I want to say they take on the energy, but it's more that they feel responsible or like they can even control that about somebody else. We're not, if we're not going through that program, we're probably
An
not already
illusion.
controlling ourselves, let alone somebody else, right?
Right. Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
So, I
And
could,
so for the first time, Kathy, for the last year, over the last year, I really haven't dated. I've been out of a relationship, and that's the first time I haven't had somebody in my life since I was 15 years old.
let me ask you how that feels.
Uh, you know what? It feels good. Other than being in this lockdown with the the coronavirus pandemic and being alone with
Right.
myself only and being an extrovert, that's not easy.
I get it.
Right?
That's why I'm talking on a podcast.
Oh my gosh. So, other than that, for the last year, I traveled, I did things, I explored what I really like because it was always in the context of I was with somebody else and we'd make compromise and do what they wanted to do or what I wanted to do, or it would be a mix, but I would always have to think of somebody else while I was in the experience of experiencing whatever it was.
Hmm.
So I spent time traveling. I traveled many different places. I get to go to some amazing places and do things that I wanted to do. And my gosh, you know what? I guess I basically dated myself, and man, I'm in love with myself. I'm awesome.
Well, you're very lovable. There's something to be said about that. And it's been kind of a common thread, a common denominator throughout some of my interviews as of late. And
Mhm.
it's about, what do you like? We go through life again. We just talked
Yeah.
about, we've got this basic idea of who we are by the time we're 5 from, what you're talking about. I'm
Hmm.
telling you how it's almost from birth. We get groomed into be a certain
And
person,
that's what we run with.
and we do what everybody says we should do. So
Mhm.
society says we should drive a certain car, we should
Yeah.
we should like sushi or whatever it is. There's
Whatever.
things that fit in. And so what's been a common thread is that people that have struggled with depression, it just so happens that you're my third interview of in a row of those with severe depression that they've struggled
Yeah.
with. And a common denominator through all of them is they didn't know what they liked when they were coming up out of it. And one said to me, "You'll like this." She didn't know anything she liked, and she was living in the East Coast, depressed,
Hmm.
suicidal, locked in a psych. Not I would say, well, locked. It's a locked
Yeah.
facility, a psych
Oh
ward.
yeah.
A nurse like
Hmm.
ourselves,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Well, I don't know what I like." And then she started so small. I like palm trees.
Yeah.
I like sunshine.
That's all.
I'll move to California. What's my first
Yes.
step? And I thought, that is brilliant. It wasn't even like, she said, I can't think of anything I like. So what makes me smile? And starting, and
That
it's,
easy, isn't it?
well, it's
Yeah.
not always that easy. And I know
Yeah.
I
It
don't know if
can
you
be.
mind sharing in our talk before. We had a brief, conversation prior to this podcast interview, and you shared with me some things that are very personal about the
Yeah.
level of your depression and how
Yeah.
bad it was. And I would love if you're willing to share that with
Oh,
the.
absolutely. Yeah, I talk about it a lot because I'm, one of my things I'm passionate about is getting rid of the stigma of mental illness because, it's like people think that your brain is this part of your human organism that should never fail. It should never be miswired or it should never be different, right? And that's complete and utter bullshit. And I work very hard at getting rid of the stigma by sharing my story. So in May of 2011, I came home after having dinner and drinks with friends, and it was a beautiful spring day in Boston. And I went into my bedroom and I sat on my bed and I thought about my life for a little bit. And then I went to the drawer in the dresser and I opened it and I pulled out my shiny 9mm Smith and Wesson and I put it to my head. And I had to make a decision. Am I going to pull the trigger or am I not? And obviously I did not. And, I thought about my kids and I didn't want them to find me that way. But I had every reason in the book at that moment as to why it made sense. Number one, I'd been drinking, and drinking for someone who's depressed is not a positive thing, right? It's a
Depressed.
depressant to
Yeah.
begin with. And at that moment in time, my business of 25 years or so was in the tanks and it was just not doing good. And I didn't know what I was going to do. My ex-wife had moved my son 900 miles away and I hadn't seen him, maybe a couple of times in the last few years. And I love my son, and he's my youngest and my only boy. And, I love all my kids, but, not seeing him was hard. My fiance of 3 years had just told me that she had found someone else. And so I was not happy with that. And, the biggest thing that had happened is my nephew, who was the same age as my son, he was 17 at the time, had the week before, 2 houses away, had shot and killed his mother, my sister-in-law, and buried her in the backyard. And I was just devastated because I loved both of them very, very much. And so there was all of these things came together at once, and I had all these good reasons why, geez, you know what, maybe it's just time to check out. But I didn't. And so that's what started the journey down the path of, okay, how did I get to that point? Because I'm a happy guy. I've been accused of being the happiest guy alive, and damn it, I'll take it. I am most times. How did I get to that moment where it could have ended? That's where I had to start all of the digging, right? I had to figure out, first I had to treat the depression. The medication hadn't worked. I was on medication at that time. It just didn't work for me. So that's when I really had to double down on the meditation, really had to double down on the exercises when I started to do CrossFit, and I'm passionate about that. You know, putting all those things together, I am depression free and I'm medication free. So, um, man, that's how I got to where I am today.
Well, that is so good to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people can do it without medication. Some
No,
can't.
and I'm not maligning medication.
Right.
Medication works for the majority of people. And I, you know, being a nurse, I've seen it work. Like I know that it can have a positive effect. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't take medication. I'm saying that for me specifically, medication did not do the trick.
So
And I had to adopt other things.
and it's so positive that you're able to find something when it doesn't
Mhm.
work in those events, or people that have the side effects that are unbearable and they don't want to stay on it. We know that happens a
Right.
lot of time with those with mental health
And
stuff.
even if someone's on medication, they can utilize the tools that I have put together and, you know, and feel even better than they feel.
Right. I'm curious, Mark, at that point in time where you had the gun at your head
Yeah.
and something, and you realize I can make a change, something
Oh yeah.
inside of you
Yeah.
clicked and you
Yeah.
realized things could be different, and then you move forward with it.
I did. I
What did that,
did.
yeah, what did that feel like, and how did it
Well, you know, it really was about my kids. I didn't want them to find me that way. So then
yeah,
I just, you know, I was at the, it was at that time, right after that, I enrolled in nursing school. That's when I made the decision. Okay, I'm not happy in my job. Um, you know, and it's a great company and it's still a great company. My brother was my partner. He's still running it and they're very successful. So it was a great company. But my perspective, my feeling was I was stuck in it, right? So I'm stuck in this business that because everybody else says, what are you crazy? You got a
right.
great life. Goes back to what you said. You're doing what everybody else thinks you should do. It wasn't for me. Like healthcare and what I do now, that's me. That's my passion. So I started nursing school right after that. And it was not easy because it really disrupted the company at the time. Because think about the employees see the CEO doing something different. And I'm like, hey, listen, guys, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to nursing school. It's not affecting the company.
Right.
They were very skittish. I actually had some employees leave the company because they thought that it was going somewhere. And you know what?
Ooh,
They
okay.
came back to work for the company several years later when they
Okay.
figured out that nothing was
They
going to
saw the
happen.
writing on the wall, but it was not it was not
Yeah, the
really
writing
writing
was not, yeah, the writing on the
on
wall is the pasture is not always greener on the
the
other side.
wall. Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear, right?
Right, right.
So what advice would you give to somebody? I want to talk more about your program, but
Hmm.
given where you had this change in your life,
Yeah.
significant change, this a
Hmm.
monumental turning point, so to speak, that obviously changed your path.
Hmm.
Um, what advice would you give to somebody that's similar to you, that is struggling with depression, that has all these
Yeah.
external, their
Hmm.
world falling down on them, so to speak?
Yeah.
Keep going, just another
Yeah.
minute, just another day. Well,
Yeah. So I'll share number one, this too shall pass. It will always pass. Number two, celebrate whatever it is. I celebrate my depression. I am so happy that I'm wired the way I am because I have amazing relationships with people because I don't have any of the bullshit in the way, right? I have none of the pretense. I am who I am. I accept me. I love me. And this is how I am. I'm wired. This is just how it is. Great. Fabulous. Celebrate it. Yeah, absolutely. Those two things right there. Love who you are, exactly how you are.
It sounds so easy, but we all know it's so hard. So thank
Yeah,
you for programs like yours.
right.
What, if anyone, I think I know the answer to this
Hmm.
already.
Hmm.
What or who influenced you?
Oh my gosh. I read a book early on in my business career. Someone advised me to read it, and it was called Think and Grow Rich by a guy named Napoleon Hill.
Yes, I
And
know
he
that.
wrote it in the 30s during the Great Depression. And
Yeah.
that is one of the best books I ever read, because it was the first time that I really got that how you think determines what your life is going to be like. And so, given that concept, I've really done a ton of living around that and a lot of research around that, a lot of other books. I mean, the law of attraction is all about how you think is what you get, right? Um, so, I've had a lot of great mentors. I've always had the capacity to understand what I don't know and find somebody who knows. So, I think that um, having the humility to say I don't know and find somebody who does can open up things that you never thought were possible. I've had great coaches. I have one of my very dear friends, mentors, and coaches is a guy named Elix Sintron, and he's in the Boston area, and he is magnificent as a professional and personal and business coach. A very dear friend, Dave Preston, who was the retired president of Gillette's Safety Razor division. He was a great business mentor and a great friend of mine. He still is just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And so many others. And gosh, I belong to entrepreneurs organization. So if you're in business and you want to do something, actually this group really helps in all facets of life, like personal life and in my business life. Entrepreneurs organization is an amazing peer group. So it's just entrepreneurs who meet and talk and compare notes about everything, everything, and we're totally open and honest. It's the most amazing thing. So that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, well, that's great. What
Yeah.
and what motivates you? You just always seem to have so much energy and motivation. What?
I um i recognize that I really don't have any clue how much time I have left. So I am driven by the fact that I don't know, and that I have had family members and friends that just didn't know and then they were dead. And I know that I really want to have a legacy. Like, I want to help people. I want to leave something behind. And I think I already have. I mean, my number one legacy is always going to be my children. Like, I am so happy and so proud that I have three of the most amazing human beings for children, who have just blossomed into just compassionate, empathetic, caring, kind, loving people. And that to me is the most important legacy.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, motivate. Mm.
Yeah. So I could see that the motivation for a legacy, and of course appreciating your kids as being the most
Mhm.
valuable legacy that you could ever leave. But you're leaving a legacy to more than just your family. And a
Yeah.
legacy is your family, and it can be something financial. But you're
Mhm.
leaving. You've created a program
Mhm.
that's
I've
different.
got a new idea, Kath. Here, let's talk about my new idea.
Let's talk about your. I was going to say, what are
Okay,
your.
so here's my new idea. So, I've been sitting in this apartment. I moved to Manhattan a month and a half ago, which is timing is everything, baby. So I'm at the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic right now. And I've been sitting here on the sidelines as a nurse, not knowing what to do. I tried to get a job here. I just, I don't have a ton of clinical experience.
Mhm.
Um, they're very specifically looking for ICU nurses and people who have that experience. So I was sitting here on the sidelines wondering, what the hell am I going to do to get in the game? Well, number one, I got hired by the VA, so I'm going to work for the VA. I'm going to be a nurse on the floor with the VA, probably starting next week.
Awesome! Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah,
Driving
I'm
into the
psyched.
trenches.
I'm,
Good
I'm
for you.
psyched to be in the trenches. You know, being in the
Yeah,
Marines for 6 years, it's like
yeah.
I can't run away from the battle. I got to get into it.
You
Like I
gotta,
got to run
it's
towards it.
calling your name.
Yeah. But that's not my big idea. My big idea is this. So I'm in the cannabis space, and I have a CBD products line, and I'm actually in a master's program for cannabis science and therapeutics. So this, I have some legitimacy. Like I know stuff, Kath. I know stuff. Anyway, I had this CBD product line. And I also have friends who are practitioners of different things like tapping and EMDR
Mhm.
and these different modalities around PTSD. Let me tell you something. All of these healthcare people, all of my people, your people, the nurses, the docs, the CNAs, anybody who's in these hospitals right now, they're all going to be suffering from PTSD.
Absolutely.
Inescapable.
And it's
As human beings, they're thrust into this thing. They are going to suffer from it, right?
absolutely.
So my new idea is this. The Nurse Mark community is going to gather together all of these practitioners that have these modalities that treat PTSD along with the CBD products, because CBD has been proven by some research studies. And again, we don't have all of the studies that we need, but we have some good ones that show that it has very good efficacy with PTSD.
Oh, okay.
So combining all of those things, I want the Nurse Mark community to be a community of practitioners that deliver the treatment for all of the healthcare providers for PTSD.
I love it. You
Yeah.
are so on point with that, and I'm have you school me a little bit about the cannabis and on health. I know as being a
Mhm.
nurse, I know I've heard, I've read, but
Yeah.
you're got your master's almost in that, so I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
all the knowledge to you. But
Yeah.
that's something that I've been really thinking about, about how the aftermath and all the healthcare workers, not just the healthcare workers, but specifically um, anybody
Everybody.
who's associated, people that can't see their loved ones. But
Yeah.
the healthcare workers are definitely in the trenches. I don't know if you know, my son is an ICU nurse, and
I do know that.
he's
So
with
you're on
those
the front line.
he's on the
He's
front line.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
so
What's going to happen if
it's like war. It's a war.
yeah, so it is a war, and so that's one of the biggest things we're dealing with in the veterans community, which is why I went to the VA, because those are my people too.
Right.
Um, you know, we've been dealing with that for the last 20 years, right? Or more.
Yeah.
PTSD with all of these folks who come back from the battle. Well, guess what? This is a war, and the healthcare workers are on the front lines, and it's everybody's saying it, and it's true. And
It's
they're
so
gonna
true.
they're gonna have those same issues. So I'm here to get on the front end of that,
I love it.
because what's going to happen if we have a second occurrence, right? If this thing kicks back up in the fall as they predict that it
Like
may do,
like
what
history
happens at
repeats
that
itself.
moment if everybody who has been in the fight is suffering from PTSD? That's going to affect their capacity and ability to jump back into the fray, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
100.
let's get on the front end of this. And this is brand new. Like I just had this whole vision this week.
I
And so
love it.
I'm circling the troops. I have my entrepreneur community starting to work with me on this. I'm gathering all of the sort of the operational plans together on how to get all of the providers into the mix, and how do we get the healthcare people connected with them. So it's all about logistics at this point.
Well, here's you.
Yeah.
You have an idea,
Yeah.
and then you start planning and you
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I like our listeners to hear. You can't just say, I want my life to be different, or I want to be happy.
Have
What
to.
makes you happy? You got to do the work and figure out what it is. And then you got a plan, like palm trees make me smile.
Right. Like palm
Life is
trees
in that
make me
state.
smile.
Yeah, I love it. It's
Move
just
to
so
where the
simple.
palm trees are.
But it's so simple.
But
It's
it's
so,
action,
but
right?
it's about taking action. Without action, there is no forward movement. So
None.
we can sit, and I can sit here and say, I'm going to go walk outside as much as I want, but until I stand up and start taking steps, I'm not going anywhere. I'm talking to Nurse Mark.
That's
And
exactly right. Isn't it true for everything though? If you want to lose weight, you got to do something.
yeah,
If you want to feel better and look better, you got to exercise, right? But you can think about it all you want. You can watch all the exercise videos you want. It's
Right.
not going to do a damn thing until you make that first step out the door.
So this is the one area that I think there's been some misconception about the law of attraction. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to be thin and I want to be rich, but it's not just like that. You got to vision it and envision what steps are you taking. You picture yourself running, you picture yourself strong, you picture yourself in that, that two-piece bathing suit that you like to wear, Mark.
Yeah.
Just kidding. You didn't catch that joke. I
No,
said
I use two-piece. I wear a two-piece occasionally. Yeah. Like I said, I'm at that age.
you can do whatever you want once you
That's
hit.
right. If I want to wear a two-piece, Kathy, I'm going to wear a two-piece.
Okay, then you knock it out and do that vision. So that's great advice that you give people. And so um, anything else that you have in the works? Any other plans? Any other goals?
I just applied for a 2-year meditation teacher training
What is that?
um, uh, with Jack Cornfield and Tara. I can't remember Tara's last name, and I apologize, Tara. Um, they have a 2-year meditation teacher training
Oh,
program that begins
meditation.
meditation.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
meditation. So I am such an advocate of meditation from a very scientific standpoint, right? I've tried meditation for many years, and when I went to a yoga and meditation training at a place called Kripalu in 2016. It was for healthcare professionals. So we dove into the research behind what meditation does to the brain, and not in a very long amount of time. Like, it's a short amount of time. If you meditate on a regular basis, you will have benefits in your brain, and that really kicked it in. So I meditate every day, and uh, and it's a pillar of my depression treatment, a pillar. So if I go through the certification process and I have all of these tools in the bag, I can teach other people, create training programs to teach other people to meditate. Because the worst thing is, and people say this all the time, because I have some crazy friends, I was in the Marines for 6 years, and so I can party hard with all of them, right? So I have some pretty crazy friends, and they all say, and I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends that say, "Oh, I could never meditate. My brain just doesn't allow me to do that. I'm just racing thoughts all the time." Well, no shit. Guess what? Welcome to the human condition. We all have that same experience. Even the most practiced guru sits down and has thoughts that they have nothing to do with other than they notice them. So I am all about trying to get people to sit for a minute, start, right? Because I literally believe this can change the world.
I love that. I have to say that I'm a huge advocate of meditation. It's been part of my daily routine for about
Mm,
5 years,
hmm.
and usually more than once daily. And
Yeah.
it is
Oh, especially now. I'm a 2-time-a-dayer for sure.
well, and something to share. I think I'm thinking about this whole picture with you with helping the healthcare workers
Hmm.
with their post-traumatic stress and the cannabis and the meditation. You can and your
Hmm.
program. There's a lot of things that you could probably incorporate together. I know
Yeah.
for me personally, it's sleeping was through the night. I've never slept through the night, but waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety because of the racing thoughts. So I always meditate
Yeah.
before bed, but I also
Oh, we have that in common.
and when I wake up in the middle of the night, I meditate. And
Right.
sometimes it won't be 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes it'll be 30, 40 minutes,
Yeah.
maybe even longer. But I just keep the eyes closed. I keep the
Yeah.
breathing it is so helpful. Even if you're
Yeah.
not worrying about, oh gosh, you got to wake up and go to work at this time and now you're awake. No, because it has the same benefits, if not more than that sleep. So
I
you still wake
agree.
up refreshed. And if I wake up a little early, then I throw another one in just to start my day.
And
I
it's a
don't know. I'm a
hell of a lot better than Ambien.
yeah. I'm just a huge advocate when people say things like that. It just I think that they don't really know the let's just talk about the scientific benefits of
Yeah.
meditation. It's not some
Oh my gosh.
yogi guru always sitting on a rock. It's really good for the whole body process. So
Absolutely.
and the
Yeah.
mind. So I love that's awesome. So you're gonna be teaching that, going to
I
school for that?
am.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So
Have a
my intent is to be taught so that I can teach.
That's great. You know,
Yeah.
Mark, I really admire you for,
Thanks,
taking,
Kat.
you're welcome.
I
But,
admire you too.
well,
Writing a book, having a podcast.
thank you. Well, thank you.
Why does it doesn't shock me at all?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Um, but you've taken adversity in your life.
Mhm.
You got the cards you're dealt with. You had the parents you had. You had 5 o'clock. You at 5 o'clock. It's not. It's past 5 o'clock. At 5 years old, you have this imprinted stuff. You've gone through the struggles. You had a gun to
Mhm.
your head. Thought about taking your life, but you've have this magnetism about you and this huge heart for helping other people, which is, we need more Marks in the world, more nurse Marks. But
Mhm.
I love that you're taking it and you're not stopping. Like, I'm not resting on my laurels. You're so humble, but you've accomplished a lot of amazing things, and you're still
God,
going,
thank
but
you.
you're not going for you. I
No.
mean, part of it's you're going because it's your passion, and you said it
Mhm.
several times, and your purpose is to help others. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So I
Yeah.
personally thank you for that and
Yeah.
everything you're
Thanks.
doing. So I would like you to let our listeners know
Yep.
how they can connect with you. Where can they get a hold of Nurse Mark?
Oh, you know what? I am a social media nut. I'm all over the place. So Instagram, Nurse Mark W, Facebook, Nurse Mark, website, nursemark.co. So it's not com, it's .co. And you can always get me at nursemark@nursemark.co and reach out anytime. I am always happy to talk to anybody.
That is awesome. And before I ask you one last question, I want to
Yeah.
thank you again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I'd like to maybe hook up with you another time down the road after you get
Yeah.
a little bit more of this stuff, even more.
Oh my gosh. We'll have so much more to talk about.
My dog's making a noise. Of course, we're all shut in, so I got doggy here. I'm not going anywhere to do this. So
Uh-huh.
my question, it's my signature question.
Yeah.
How do you love you, live you? How do you love you, live you? Though I think you've already answered that question.
Yeah. So love me is accept me exactly as I am. And you know what? Give me the same benefit of the doubt that I give everybody else. Don't we always judge ourselves the harshest? I mean, I give the other people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm really hard on myself. You know
Yeah.
what? Just give myself a break. It's and that's it. I mean, I just and it's okay to say I love me. I'm absolutely amazing, and so are you. And
Thank
you
you.
should know that you are amazing yourself.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
And now the second half of the question, how do you
yeah.
live you? Though you've answered this probably also.
Live me. Um, I always wanted to live in New York City. Always wanted to live in New York City. I fell in love with the city in 2018 when I was here for a short while, and I went back to Boston. My mom passed away, and I was there for the last year, and I wanted to always live in New York City. So I did move to New York City. And here I am, a couple of months in, and timing is everything. And you know what? Now I need to pack my stuff and go, to Boston and get involved in the VA and move this thing forward and have them send me wherever I'm gonna go. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I had my 2-month New York City adventure. I'll get back to the city sometime. I'm okay with it. I'm just, you know what? How do I live it? I live it by being open to whatever occurs and then just dealing with it, not having a preconceived story about how my life should roll out.
Living in
That's
the
it.
moment. Living in
Boom.
the moment.
Living in the moment
That's
and not
awesome.
creating a story about what it needs to be or what it should have been, or it is just what it is.
Acceptance.
Yeah, that's
I
it
love
right
it.
there.
Well, again, I thank you so much, Mark, for
Well,
coming on the
thank you,
show. It's
Kathy,
always
for
a
having me on.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. And again,
Yes.
everybody, if you would like to get in touch with me, you can get a hold of me on my website at www.loveyouliveyu.com. I have an email. Go ahead and reach out. I promise you I'll answer you myself. I look forward to hearing from everybody. And until next time, Mark, stay safe in those trenches during this COVID pandemic. And
Yes.
we will talk again soon. Okay.
Much love and happiness.
Love and happiness. Peace.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Take care.
Take care.
Bye, Mark.